You're listening to the Telltale Channel. I have switched my podcast host away from SoundCloud, and I've switched it to Spreaker, and I've pushed out the new RSS feed to everywhere. So everywhere, anywhere you use podcasting, any app that you use, you should have access to my new podcast. It's changed from Owen's Fireside Chat to Owen Morgan's Fireside Chat. That's the new podcast. Has all of my new episodes, and it has the old episodes too, but I'm losing all of my analytics, sadly. I don't have any reviews or anything, so I'd appreciate if you guys review my podcast when you listen to it, like the audio podcast. That'd mean a lot to me. But yeah, all of the old content is still available on the new podcast, and that's where I'm going to be uploading new stuff. Because Spreaker has like an audio ad feature or something like that, and it has like way better storage and things like that. So anyway, yeah, give that a look. It's on Audible, Castbox, Apple Podcasts, and everything. Spotify, I'm on Spotify. Just make sure you get the right one. It's Owen Morgan's Fireside Chat. In this podcast, Republicans just voted on whether birth control should be allowed in the U.S. One of the congressmen who voted no, Tim Scott, went on Fox News to explain his decision. Instead of addressing birth control, he railed about abortion for 20 minutes. And of course, the Fox host let him. Right-wing extremist podcaster Stu Peters was planning to host an Extreme Accountability conference recently. Extreme Accountability means exactly what you think it means. His venue contract was canceled by the hotel. I talked about that in a recent podcast. And now, his ticketing system, Eventbrite, has canceled him too. Oh boy, he is not happy, but I am. Jehovah's Witnesses have a unique view on the LGBT community. Let's talk about how they come to their conclusions about the demographic and why they're wrong. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. Yeah, there's this guy named Johnny Enlow. And he's like a Trump prophet, basically. He believes that Trump is the second coming of Jesus in spirit, if not in body, He thinks that Trump is fulfilling the role that Jesus was expected to fulfill on his second coming. And I'm not being flippant, I'm not being hyperbolic or joking. That's literally what he believes. He thinks he has the Cyrus anointing, quote unquote, right? Now, Johnny Enlow lays down prophecies like nothing else, like they're pancakes. So I want to listen to this and see what he has to say here. This is on the Elijah Streams Facebook page. Top left is Steve Schultz, the owner of the Facebook page. Bottom left is Johnny Enlow. Just give this a listen.
When you have proof before the American people that you will have these lower federal courts also attempt to, eliminate the people's choice for president. And I think the words that President Trump keeps using is election interference. And he says it over and over and over, not just as a whining complaint, he's making a legal point. And so that this...
Well, what Trump is doing when he does that is a propaganda technique called the fire hose of falsehoods. So he'll throw out everything he can and see what sticks. What people start repeating in the forums, and on Reddit and on his ex-subreddit, The Donald, it's moved over to a website called patriots.win, where whatever they're saying there, whichever propaganda they're repeating there, that's the one that he really sticks to. That's the one that seems to be landing with people. So he threw out a billion different types, and the election interference one, that one really stuck. So he's repeating that the most. Fire hose of falsehoods propaganda was... I'm not sure if it was like invented at this time, but it was perfected at the time. But Vladimir Putin in 2014, when he took Crimea, perfected the fire hose of falsehoods. And I believe that's where it got its name, was from that time. Does it surprise anybody that like Donald Trump is using all the propaganda techniques that Putin either invented or used at various times?
And I think the words that President Trump keeps using is election interference. And he says it over and over and over, not just as a whining complaint, he's making a legal point. And so that at this point, there is the absolute proof before the American people. This gives to me, the military makes their own decisions, we'll say the white hats on all that. But this is...
yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention, he's a QAnoner. This whole white hat thing, the military make decisions, blah, blah, blah. That's all QAnon stuff. He's a QAnoner.
The military makes their own decisions, we'll say the white hats on all that. But this is, it's kind of full circle. The treachery has gone full circle, and the evidence before the people is there. And it's just whenever they want to make their move, it's justified. It's not just justified in the eyes of the people. There's good reason why a lot of the people are like, what in the world are you waiting for?
So I guess he's saying that it would be justified for Donald Trump and whoever else to seize control of the government by force. And people are saying, what in the world are you waiting for right now? Seize control.
People are like, what in the world are you waiting for? The Lord has chosen Trump as his ally. He will use him to put an end to the empire of Babylon. And now where you see empire of Babylon, think Federal Reserve.
Take a look. Have any of your idols ever told you this? This is the writing, if you're listening right now, for the audio audience. This is written on the screen here. Have any of your idols ever told you this? Come, all of you, and listen. The Lord has chosen Cyrus as his ally. He will use him to put an end to the empire of Babylon. If you're unfamiliar with the time period, the nation of Israel existed as its own autonomous entity, right? So we had Israel at the top, and then south of Israel was a country called Judea. And Judea was home to a number of different tribes of Israelites. I think the tribe of Benjamin and the tribe of Judah lived in the south in Judea. And there's a southern bias all through the Old Testament, like through the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. It's very clear that whoever wrote it, it wasn't Moses, by the way. Moses wasn't even real. Whoever wrote it had a bias against Israel and the other 10 tribes or so that were in Israel. Anyway, Israel and Judea existed there together, and then Nebuchadnezzar took the leadership position in Babylon, which is in modern-day Iraq. So think about where that is. Israel's over here. Israel's over here, Iraq over here, roughly. It's called the Fertile Crescent that stretches around across Babylon and past Gaza and a little bit into Egypt. So Babylon, the Babylon Empire, orders Israel and Judea to pay tribute to him. And as long as they pay tribute, they can continue to live and control the area in an autonomous kind of state. After the 4th year of that tribute being paid, they said, no, we're not paying the tribute anymore. Israel did. And Nebuchadnezzar comes in and invades and takes some Jews into captivity with him. And they set up another makeshift government. I believe, was it Zedekiah who took control after they took the first tranche of Jews to Babylon? I don't remember. Anyway, in 586 BCE, Nebuchadnezzar came back and destroyed Solomon's temple, temple number 1. The way that we know that date specifically is because we have a bunch of tablets, basically receipts that the Babylonians kept. I mean, they were impeccable record keepers, and they used to sign their clay tablets with star charts to show a date and a time for when this happened. And it wouldn't have happened for another 1,000 or 2,000 years, that specific arrangement of the stars. So that's how we know that it was 586 BCE, beyond a shadow of a doubt. That's contested among Jehovah's Witnesses and them only. Anyway, Nebuchadnezzar comes back in 586 BCE, destroys Solomon's temple, destroys the entire government, the makeshift government that existed there. But Jews remained in kind of communes in the area. There just wasn't a central government anymore. So they took, I don't remember, I think 5-6% of the Jews into slavery in Babylon. It's significantly lower than the Bible claims. And after a short time, maybe 30 years, I don't remember, After some number of decades, the Persian Empire swept in. King Cyrus of the Persian Empire. They sweep in and they take control of Babylon. They dethrone the leadership and they write a decree freeing the Jews, allowing them to go back to their homeland if they would like. And there was a slow trickle. Some of them stayed because they, had families there. And some went back slowly. So King Cyrus, though he's not Jewish or affiliated with that religion at all, he's viewed as a special figure who freed Jews from captivity in Babylon. And this story is used as like a, what do you call it? Like a analogy for modern day stuff all the time. Not just by like Jehovah's Witnesses, but obviously by Johnny Enlow and a bunch of other people. That's what he's talking about here. So it says, "Come, all of you, and listen. The Lord has chosen Cyrus as his ally." Cyrus, of course, being Donald Trump in their mind. He has the Cyrus anointing, as they say, as Johnny Enlow says. He, God, will use him, the person who has the Cyrus anointing, Donald Trump, to put an end to the empire of Babylon. Babylon the Great, in the Bible, is usually used as an analogy for false religion, for evil, for Rome, the big bad country who's oppressing God's people, basically. So Donald Trump is going to come along and put an end to false religion. That's what this means, what this writing means. Now let's listen again a little bit to what Johnny Enlow is saying here.
The Lord has chosen Trump as his ally. He will use him to put an end to the empire of Babylon. And now where you see empire of Babylon, think Federal Reserve, central banks, Rothschild dynasty.
Oh boy, we're going down some serious anti-Semitic conspiracy theories here.
This is a prophetic decree, declaration, a statement in the face of what just happened.
That means that Johnny Enlow is claiming to hear these things from God directly. God is giving him this information to disseminate to the rest of the world. It's a prophetic decree from Johnny Enlow. Get help, bro. Seriously. I feel bad for him, honestly.
This is a prophetic decree, declaration, a statement in the face of what just happened. The Lord has chosen Trump as his ally. This ultimately is God's plan. Trump, for those who don't know the story of Cyrus out of Isaiah 45, Babylon was the nation he had to take down. So that is what's being taken down now. The Federal Reserve, even the religion of those who are what we would call the deep state, the Illuminati.
The Illuminati.
Those that are part of the cabal, this ruling, corrupt, pedophilic elite around the world, they really religiously connect completely with the same practices, even the same gods as Babylon, the same Babylon that Cyrus had to deal with.
Holy Christ on a cracker, dude. This is a wild conspiracy. If you caught it there, he said cabal. The word cabal refers to Jewish people directly. Cabal is short for Kabbalah, which is like a method of meditation. It's found in the book of Zohar, which isn't in every Jewish holy book. Jewish holy books contain the Old Testament, largely, same as the Bible, and then a few books on top of that, just basically writings throughout the ages. So the belief among certain Jews is that when Moses came down from the mountain with the commandments, it wasn't just the commandments that he came. He came with oral commandments too, not just the written ones. And Jews were instructed to keep the oral commandments and not write them down. But after the temple was destroyed for the second time, this group of Jews who believed in the oral commandments, not every one of them did, the ones that believed in the oral commandments decided, okay, it's time to write these down and we're going to lose it forever. Those Jews were called the Pharisees, the ones that believed in the oral commandments. And that is our modern day Jews. That's the movement that modern day Judaism was birthed out of. The cultural values and behaviors and interests and ideals and all of that, it all came from the Pharisaical movement, also known as Rabbinic Judaism. Anyway, the books that they wrote are supposed to represent the oral commandments that came from Moses off the mountain, among other things. And one of the books is called the Talmud, basically. There's a Jerusalem Talmud, and there's another, a Babylonian Talmud and a Jerusalem one, I think. I forget. One of them is more recent by a few hundred years than the other. And it's a lot more detailed, and it's better translated and much clearer. And it's generally the one that's used by modern-day Jews. Anyway, that's the holy book that they use, by and large. The Old Testament, the Torah, and then the Talmud, and so on and so forth. And in this collection of holy books, within their Bible, they have a book called Zohar. In the book of Zohar, it talks about something called Kabbalah. The claim about Kabbalah is very mystical and secretive, but ultimately what it boils down to is it's just a form of meditation. And they say that, like yoga or mindfulness or whatever, they say that if you master this meditation, you can become one with God and you can exhibit incredible powers like moving things with your mind, telekinesis and stuff. But the last master of Kabbalah to be able to do that died, and the secrets died with him. I mean, it's obviously all nonsense, but you know what? If people want to meditate, then go nuts. So the point here that I was so laboriously getting to is that the word Cabal is from Kabbalah. When people refer to the Cabal, whether they realize it consciously or not, they're talking about Jews. Just add a little more context to the Cabal or Kabbalah thing. The way it's described is a man wanders off in a direction that no one has ever gone before. One goes off into the desert. He comes back and he says, I just saw something incredible. It's an animal that had a neck like a giraffe and a face like a bird, like an eagle, and feet like an otter or whatever. And it was like, what? Doesn't make any sense. So another guy goes out to see what he's talking about. He says, you're right, there is something out there, but it's not the way you described it. It has the mouth of an alligator and the feet of a platypus and, so on and so. It was just like really weird, incongruent descriptions of this thing that they found out in the wilderness. Until the third guy goes out. He says, I'm going to settle this once and for all. He finds the creature, kills it, drags it back to camp, and they all look at it and they see for themselves and understand why everybody described it the way that they did. As the reader, you're not supposed to be able to understand that because you haven't seen it yourself. So the point is that Kabbalah is not understood by anybody unless you have opened your mind and achieved the highest tier of meditation in Kabbalah. You don't understand anything about it, and it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, that's Kabbalah for you. I thought it was kind of an interesting story. I looked into it pretty deeply a while back. The point is that this guy, whether he realizes it or not, hates Jews, blames Jews for all of his problems, and loves Donald Trump, and thinks that Trump is effectively the second coming of Jesus. That is absolutely wild. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. Republicans just voted on whether birth control should be allowed in the U.S. One of the congressmen who voted no, Tim Scott, went on Fox News to explain his decision. Instead of addressing birth control, he railed about abortion for 20 minutes. And of course, the Fox host let him. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. On the right is a guy named Tim Scott. Okay, he was running for president recently. He ran against Donald Trump in the 2024 primary elections to try to win the Republican nomination. He didn't get far at all, honestly. But he's now kind of a legitimate public political figure now as a result of that. Well, they held a vote, Congress did, to determine if contraception should be protected, like the access to contraception should be protected. And guess how Tim Scott voted? Tim Scott, on screen, voted against access to contraception on the House floor. Listen to what they had to say to each other here. This is Brett Baer on the left on Fox News.
This vote, Right to Contraception Act, failed in the Senate today. It had to get 60 to get past the procedural hurdle. 39 nays. You
this is the Senate, I guess.
were one of the nays.
Yes.
So for folks who, why vote nay, and explain.
So if you look here, 51 is exactly how many votes the Democrats have in the Senate right now, down to the man. At 39, they might have gotten one Republican, but I don't even think they did. And then 39 Republicans. The other, whatever it is, 11, maybe the other 11 senators or however many didn't vote, probably because they knew that it wasn't going to work anyway.
And explain how that's not a bad issue for Republicans.
Yeah, this is just a shame that the Democrats are willing to try to politicize whether or not women have access to contraceptions.
Well, are you kidding me? Who's politicizing this? No, nobody wants to restrict access to contraception. He's like flipping this around. Democrats were in favor of spreading access to contraception. He's pretending that he was voting in favor of contraception access. And like Brett Baer is not calling him on this. What? Okay, so he's pretending he wants women to have access to contraception, even though he doesn't. Now let's listen to him justify voting against access to like birth control, voting against having like access to condoms or birth control pills or the depot shot or, IUDs or whatever. What excuse could he possibly have for this?
Have access to contraceptions. The bottom line is they absolutely do, and that will continue. The question is why Democrats continue to take the most extreme position on abortion.
No, the question is literally, why did you vote against access to birth control? That is actually the question. This is not about abortion, okay? This is about condoms. Why did you vote to disallow people, make it more difficult for people to access condoms? Why? He's somehow managed to weasel his way into a discussion on abortion. What?
To take the most extreme position on abortion in the country. All the Senate Democrats have voted, not talked about, but voted for abortion up until the day of birth.
Okay, just complete bullshit, all of it. I and pretty much every other Democrat politician out there want Roe v. Wade back. I like where Roe v. Wade was. I thought it was a fantastic, bright line that was drawn by the legal system, okay? Somewhere between day 1 of pregnancy and week 39 and 6 days, somewhere in there, it goes from being a clump of cells to a human being, right? And that should be considered, absolutely. Roe v. Wade said up to 20 weeks, it's possible to do the procedure if you want to. Beyond 15 weeks, nobody got it done unless it was like a medical issue. Between 20 and 30 weeks, the only time this is ever done is if there was a doctor saying this must be done, or the baby's going to die, or you're going to die, or both. And beyond that, it's the exact same thing. It's only in cases of medical necessity, extreme medical necessity. Now, here's my position, and here's Roe v. Wade's position. That doctrine, I guess, is created by the Supreme Court originally, I believe. And here's the position of pretty much every Democrat. Up to 20 weeks, women are allowed to choose to get an abortion if they want. That is before gender is even possible to determine. That's before it can live outside the mothers, before pain or before a brain is formed, before a heart is formed, or any of that. It's still effectively a clump of cells at that point. Beyond 20 weeks, a doctor has to approve. A doctor has to have a good reason to allow it. That's what I want. That's what Democrats want. That's what Roe v. Wade was. Now, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Everybody wants it up to the day of birth. That's simply not true. People just refuse to engage in these ridiculous hypothetical situations.
For abortion up until the day of birth. The former Virginia governor, Democrat pediatrician, has suggested even infanticide. I'm not making this up.
Yes, he is. He is. I looked up what he's saying here, and he is actually making this up. I love how he says, I'm not making it up, when he explicitly is making it up. Here's the article right here. This is on AP News. AP News is super trustworthy. Reuters, super trustworthy. BBC, America, independent.co.uk, really trustworthy sources. Check out this article by the Associated Press, AP. Posts distort former Virginia governor's comments on third trimester abortions. Okay, like I said, Roe v. Wade only ever allowed third trimester abortions, which is 28 weeks and onward, if there was a doctor's approval because somebody in the equation was going to die, if this didn't happen. Claim: a video shows Virginia Governor Ralph Northam during a 2019 radio interview speaking in support of infanticide or after-birth abortions. AP's assessment: false. Northam was giving a hypothetical example of what could happen if a mother whose fetus had severe deformities or wasn't otherwise viable, like it was born with its head just was filled with water. There's no brain. There's no brain stem. There's no nothing. It's just filled with water. It's called hydroencephaly, I believe, and that happens more often than you'd think. In those cases, abortion beyond 28 weeks is totally justified. It's like when the baby comes out, it's not even a baby. It's just going to be a husk, just like an empty shell. That's what he's talking about, that kind of situation. So he's talking about that type of situation, and if the mother requested an abortion while in labor, and it was that situation, then it might be acceptable before the baby comes out. I mean, again, this is why people shouldn't do hypotheticals, because it's going to get all twisted around. Again, if the baby is perfectly healthy, perfectly viable, and safe and fine on its own, and there's no legitimate reason for abortion, like somebody is in danger or something, then it shouldn't happen after 20 weeks. After halfway through the second trimester, it shouldn't happen. That is the position of literally every single person in the U.S., pretty much. But, Republicans have to twist it around and turn it into some insane, ridiculous nonsense that is not representative of reality, and just straight up make things up to convince everybody that Democrats are like way off in La La Land when they're not.
Virginia governor, Democrat pediatrician, has suggested even infanticide. I'm not making this up, Brett.
He absolutely was.
These are votes taken in our chamber. That tells me very clearly they're doing every single thing they can to hide from their own voting record. This is an issue that we should continue to push, because this is an issue where the American people say, wait, abortion up until the day of birth?
Yeah, nobody wants that. Okay, he's just propagandizing and lying here. And by the way, what does this have to do with contraception? He voted against access to contraception. He voted against access to birth control. That's what he was asked about. Why is Bret Baier allowing him to lie about abortion when it's completely disconnected from the subject? Because Bret Baier is a Fox News shill. Because he's willing to do whatever it takes to lie or to manipulate or to whatever else to get his guy to win, to get his side further. Disgusting.
That's wrong. Infanticide, allowing a child to be born and then
That isn't even what the guy said, the Virginia governor would have. That's not even what he said. No one is for post-birth abortion. That's just called murder. No one has ever advocated for that.
A child to be born and then letting it die, that's un-American. And so when you hear what Chuck Schumer suggests,
most Democrats are in that space. Why does he do that vote today on contraception?
Well,
thank you. Please bring it back to the point here. Why did you vote against birth control?
The polls are clear that they are losing this November election.
What does that have to do with anything? No, the polls aren't clear on that, but so what if they were? Who cares? Why did you vote against birth control?
Election, the day of reckoning, is November 5th of this year. They're doing anything they can to try to demonize the Republicans as if we're going to do something as ridiculous as he suggests. You just
You just voted against contraception. Are you kidding? That's ridiculous. Nobody is trying to vote for post-birth abortion. Nobody's brought a bill to the floor about that. Nobody wants that. It's fabricated. Why is he talking about it? He's talking about it to get people whipped into a blood frenzy. Tim Scott is a weasel for weaseling his way out of that question instead of just answering it. And Brett Baer is a weasel for allowing him to. Like, I'm not even saying that to, like, be, you know, I'm not saying it as an insult. I'm saying these people are weaseling their way out of real problems and real questions instead of just directly telling us what they think and how they feel. Why don't they want access to birth control? Why are they trying to make it more difficult for women to have control of their reproductive cycle? We're not even talking abortion. We're talking condoms. Why are Republicans doing this? We need to really step out and take a 5,000-foot look down at this situation. They say they don't want abortion. Okay, well, you reduce abortions by increasing birth control, increasing sex education, and things like that. Do they do either of those things? No. He's trying to ban birth control. They're trying to push abstinence only on school kids. So what do they want, really? Like, actually? It's obviously not to decrease abortion rates. My best guess at what these people like Tim Scott are reaching for is limiting women's ability to control their own reproductive cycle. I don't know how else to interpret this. And then you have this right here. This is a guy, what was his name? Congressman Shelby Lawson. He asked some questions of an anti-abortion activist. Give this one a listen. This is from late May 2024.
That less access to contraception leads to higher rates of unintended pregnancies.
I'm not advised.
Are you really? Okay. Is she pretending to be this f***ing stupid? Or is she actually this f***ing stupid? I have no idea why she won't just answer the question. The question was, by decreasing access to birth control, does that cause unwanted pregnancy to go up or down? The answer is, very obviously, reduced access to birth control causes unwanted pregnancy to go up. It causes abortions to go up. And this isn't just speculation. There are a billion studies to back this up, to show us what happens. So his question, the answer is yes. It does cause more abortion. Okay, now let's listen to this anti-abortion activist.
I'm not advised on that.
Again, I'm not asking you to cite any data or statistics. I'm not asking that. I'm just asking your opinion. If a population does not have access to contraception, could that lead to higher rates of unintended pregnancies?
Like, the answer is very obviously yes. So, like, she can't even bring herself to say yes here.
I'm so sorry, Representative. I'm not advised on that.
I don't know what she means, I'm not advised. What does that even mean?
And so, are you aware that family planning services, including access to contraception, while you're not advised on it, I'm going to presume that you would recognize that those are valuable services to help families, individuals, women decide when they want to become pregnant. Would you?
Yeah, it's not just, like, Planned Parenthood doesn't just do abortions. It's like 4% of what they do or something like that. They also provide contraception, birth control to people, and they do STD testing. They give, vaccines to HPV and things like that. They do all kinds of stuff that helps people. And the people who are talking to this representative right now are desperately trying to shut down Planned Parenthood. This is just sad.
And they want to become pregnant. Are you aware that there are a lot of people in the state of Texas, but particularly in the Hispanic and African American communities, where
I think he's just Latino, whether it's male, female, or otherwise, just Latino. Latinx is a totally different story, but the Latino community does not want to be called Latinx, as far as I know. But Latino and Hispanic are different. They cover different regions, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, so the Latino community, what?
Hispanic and African American communities that are disproportionately underserved in that regard. Would you agree with that?
I'm not advised on that matter, Representative.
Are you serious? She comes to Congress to speak on abortion and is completely clueless on the subject? Are you telling me that somebody didn't sit down with her and prep her for what she should say and the information that she should know? This is a joke. Of course she knows the answers to these questions. You don't even need to see the scientific data to know that less access to birth control means higher rates of unintended pregnancies and higher rates of abortion. These people are jokes.
So you're not sure or aware, just to recap this, if access to contraception in any way relates to rate of unintended pregnancies?
What I am confident of is that
yes or no
every
would be
heartbeat matters
Oh, she's not going to give us a yes or no.
and is worth our protection.
Every heartbeat matters. Okay. What does that have to do with contraception? What does that have to do with condoms? Why did they hold a vote to prevent women from accessing birth control pills when it's non-abortive, does not cause abortions? And when asked why did they answer, every heartbeat matters? Before 20 weeks, there is no heartbeat to speak of. Even after 20 weeks. I mean, before, 25 weeks or something like that. There's no heartbeat to speak of. There's an electrical impulse that is going through certain nerves or whatever, certain cellular structures. That's it. Again, there's a line somewhere between day 1 and week 39 and day 6 where it does become a human who is worthy of being protected, and it's not the moment it comes out. It's before that. I can agree. I can agree with her. We can all agree that it's slightly before it comes out, right? She's saying she doesn't even want contraception because before you stand up to get a towel, there's a third person in the room with you, in her mind. Before you stand up to use the bathroom, there's a third person in the room. It's nonsense. She doesn't believe this. You can't convince me she believes it. This isn't what it's about with these people. Again, these people are doing what they're doing. Tim Scott, for example, guy who voted against contraception access, and these girls right here on screen, they're doing what they're doing for a completely different reason. I don't believe they give a shit about abortion, about every life or whatever, every heartbeat. You can't convince me they care about any of that. Are they fighting against the death penalty if every life matters? No, they're fighting harder for it. Are they fighting to help young kids, say 2, 3, 4-year-old kids who are destitute, living in complete poverty and don't have enough food? Those kids whose abortions they prevented when they get to school, are they fighting to give those kids free lunch? No. They don't give a shit about the lives. They don't give a shit about the kids. Never did. It was always about how can we weaponize this to our advantage. In my opinion, there is an overarching moral system that they are adhering to that when all put together, it does make sense. They want to ban birth control. They want to ban abortion. They want to ban sex ed, make it abstinence only. They want to ban gay marriage, and they want to blah, 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 all that stuff, right? There is an overarching moral system for this. But in my opinion, I think that the more cynical actors, like Jerry Falwell Sr., for example, one of the guys that really pushed this whole pro-life thing, I think his goal behind that was to advocate for a quote-unquote minority group, unborn babies, who could not argue with him about what he was saying. You know, he was speaking for them. Jerry Falwell Sr. comes out and speaks for the black community and says the black community doesn't want high food stamps. Or the black community wants to get rid of Social Security or whatever. No, you can't do that because the black community can speak for themselves. It's not even a monolith. But Jerry Falwell can speak for unborn babies, right? Because they can't speak back. Because they can't argue with him about wants or needs or interests or anything. And as soon as they're born, he doesn't care anymore. It's over. They can starve to death for all he cares. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. I don't give a shit if you're 2 years old. Jerry Falwell Sr. was looking for a subject that he could weaponize. He's looking for a minority group that he could advocate for who couldn't speak back and get people really whipped into a blood frenzy over it so that they'd be willing to do literally anything to protect this quote-unquote minority group that he created here. Most of these people don't want abortion because they were propagandized by cynical actors like Jerry Falwell Sr. and other televangelists. That's my opinion. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. Just disgusting, man. Right-wing extremist podcaster Stu Peters was planning to host an Extreme Accountability conference recently. Extreme Accountability means exactly what you think it means. His venue contract was canceled by the hotel. I talked about that in a recent podcast. And now, his ticketing system, Eventbrite, has canceled him too. Oh boy, he is not happy, but I am. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. Guy on screen here is named Stu Peters. I've talked about him a few times, but let me just start from the beginning with him, okay? He is a Nazi. I mean, full-blown Nazi. It's not like, oh, I don't like the guy, so I'm going to call him that. No, I mean, he literally, he loves Hitler. He went on the Fresh and Fit podcast not too long ago. If you don't know these guys, I forget their name. Myron is the one on the left here, and I don't remember the other dude's name. Anyway, they have a big podcast, and they're basically like Andrew Tate's, pretty much. They're in, the manosphere or whatever, the right-wing extremist manosphere, who think that women should learn their place and just shut their mouths and cook and clean for men and, all that other stuff. So anyway, Stu Peters went on their podcast to talk to them, and it got really fascinating. He talked about Nazism, funny enough. He talked about loving Hitler, and he made some really interesting claims about it. So I just want to, kind of go through his claims and pick them apart a little bit and show you what kind of person this guy is, okay? This video is from May 24th, 2024. Give this a listen.
Yesterday, Newsweek called me a pro-Hitler Nazi. Raw Story called me a pro-Hitler Nazi. I don't know how these people get. I mean, they said that I was a Holocaust denier, which is
yeah, all of that's true about him.
Completely false.
Yep.
Emphatically false. As a matter of fact,
it's emphatically false, huh? Okay. I wouldn't come on here unless I had proof otherwise, right? Unless I had proof that he really is a Hitler lover and a Nazi and all that stuff. I wouldn't be playing this if I didn't have the proof to lay down. If it's false, though, why doesn't he just sue them for defamation? If they're falsifying information about him, he should be able to, and he should sue for defamation. He shouldn't just let people get away with that. You know why he's not suing them for defamation? Because he actually said the things that they claimed. Now, just keep listening here. I'll show you proof of that in a second.
False.
Yep.
Emphatically false. As a matter of fact, they made up a quote out of whole cloth and said,
no, they didn't.
Stu Peters said, quote, Hitler is a hero. I have never said any such
Yes, he did.
thing. And they can print this stuff with impunity because the hubris is so, because there's no accountability.
No, there is accountability in this type of situation. If they lied, you can sue them for defamation. Really. If it's that on the nose, if they are knowingly lying about something, they're just making something up, you can sue them for defamation. And he's got plenty of money. Stu Peters is significantly bigger than me, by a mile and a half. He's got the equivalent of millions of listeners. He's on Rumble. He's got his own podcast on his own website and everything. He's kicked off YouTube and all that. But he's got the equivalent of at least millions of listeners. On Rumble, I think he's got 500,000 subbies. He's got plenty of money. He could sue anybody he wanted to, but he doesn't. Wonder why? Because he knows he'd lose. That's why.
because there's no accountability.
Yep.
And so they did this as a result of me announcing the Extreme Accountability event.
Right, so he's going to hold an Extreme Accountability event. He says Ross Story should face accountability. What he means when he says accountability is he wants to murder them. Really. I'm not even joking. I'm not being hyperbolic or anything. He wants them dead. In his words, wants to hang them from a thick rope until they're dead, quote unquote.
And that's what we are going to, before I take my last breath, we're going to exact extreme accountability on these people for what they're doing to our kids.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about a tribunal, whether it be military or citizen, and after conviction through a judicial process, whether it be expedient or not, after they are convicted for these crimes, we're going to hang them.
There you go. You know what I'm saying? That's extreme accountability in his mind. That's just plain accountability. That's what he means when he says accountability. And he was about to hold an accountability, or he called it an extreme accountability conference, where they were going to gather, all of his weird little supporters. They're all going to gather in New Jersey, some Caesar Hotel or something like that originally. And they were going to hold a book burning. They're going to collect books from their local libraries all across the country, throw them in a big pile, and light them on fire. And he uses Hitler as inspiration and is following the example. I'm not just making that up. He literally says that. I'll show you in a second. Caesars canceled the event. They pulled out. They said, I don't want to host you anymore. And then he went on to call them enablers of people who take advantage of children. I'm trying to say this in a monetizer-friendly way here. But he decided to find another venue. Okay, we'll look for another venue. While he's looking for another venue, something else happened. But just keep listening here, and we'll get to what happened just after his venue is canceled.
I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
But I didn't even say that in the announcement. What they were so bent about is that I said, hey, in modern day America, we need to bring book burning back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That was his goal, was to burn books at the event. All right, so here's what happened. I played another video a week ago, 2 weeks ago, of him saying that his venue was canceled. Caesars in Atlantic City, New Jersey, or somewhere like that. It was canceled by the hotel. And he was super upset by it. Within 24 hours of the announcement that he was holding his event there, Right Wing Watch tweeted about it, wrote articles about it, and a whole bunch of people called them and told him what kind of a person he is. Saying that he wants to hang people and that he's going to hold a book burning there and stuff. He's a Nazi, a full-blown, real, legitimate Nazi. They canceled, right? So it's fine. He's still got his ticket sales. He's just going to find a new venue. And then he released this video. This one is from early June 2024.
Well, Eventbrite has now officially joined the ranks of the pedophile sympathizers and enablers.
Uh-oh. Eventbrite. I used Eventbrite to host one of my events. It's a ticketing system, if you're unfamiliar. People can buy tickets, and you get the ticketing money, and it gets deposited into your account and stuff. They just manage all the taxes and the fees and the everything for you. Super convenient. Really difficult to do it yourself otherwise. Eventbrite canceled his account. And probably refunded all of the ticket sales for him. Oh, boy.
They have now kicked the Stu Peters Network and my Extreme Accountability event off of their ticketing website. Yeah, that's right. Eventbrite booted us from their website this week. And of course, this comes after Caesars of Atlantic City canceled our Extreme Accountability event reservations at that venue at the behest of the corporate media and a bunch of other disgusting, perverted cowards who are terrified of.
Well, actually, they canceled it because you said you intended to hang people and that you love Hitler and stuff, that Hitler's a hero. Again, I have proof of that, and I'm going to show you in a minute. So he is obviously miffed, straight up miffed, over the fact that he had his ticket sales platform pull out, not working with him anymore. And he also doesn't have a venue anymore either. I wonder what he's going to do. I'm sure there's some scumbag corporation out there who'd be willing to host a Nazi book burning. I don't know who, but certainly somebody, right? But fascinatingly, this is the thing that really got this guy, this is the evidence that I was talking about. This next clip that I'm about to show you. This is also early June. He talked about Magnus Hirschfeld previously, and I watched a video about it from him. And he seems to be like really leaning into it. He wants to make it very clear that he cannot stand Magnus Hirschfeld. Now, if you don't know who that is, let me just read a little excerpt for you from a book. I read this little excerpt previously too, but it's pretty short. It'll give you an idea of what we're about to listen to. Okay, so there's a book titled The Coming of the Third Reich by Richard J. Evans. Phenomenally good book, phenomenal writer. It's super, super long, though. It's like a 30-hour Audible read. It's like 1,000 pages or something. But there's this one chapter, just a couple of pages here, one or two, that describes what happened to Magnus Hirschfeld. Just a little bit of context leading into this. Hirschfeld was gay, and he owned a sexology institute, or created a sexology institute in Berlin, Germany, in the 19-teens, 20s, 30s. I think all the way back to maybe the late 1800s, he ran this institute. He pioneered research into the transgender movement, into the gay movement. He pushed for gay rights, gay marriage, and everything else harder than maybe anybody else at that time. He was the biggest advocate you could imagine for LGBT rights. And the Nazis, when they were starting to come to power, he was the first one that they targeted. Gay people were the first ones targeted, and trans people and stuff. Hitler ran for office. He ran for president leading into the early 30s. And he lost to a guy named von Hindenburg, who was previously the president. Von Hindenburg was like super far right. He was a far right nutcase. So people had to choose between a far right nutcase and Hitler, who was very obviously even further right. So von Hindenburg wins. And at the time, the government in Germany was actually very similar to the government in the United States, like nearly identical in a lot of ways. They had a Congress building and congressmen. They even had something kind of like senators. And they had a president, von Hindenburg. But in their system, von Hindenburg, or the president, chooses a chancellor, kind of like, in the U.S. choosing a vice president. Except the chancellor handles all political dealings. So the president handles military stuff, signs treaties, and gets troops ready and orders them to war and whatever else. And he can also force elections to be held again. And the chancellor handles any bills being written, executive orders, things like that. That's how it worked in Germany, right? Well, 1933, Hitler signs the Enabling Act, or the Enabling Act is passed. And that act in 1933 basically allowed Hitler to legislate without consent of Congress. And von Hindenburg dissolved Congress, basically said we're going to hold new elections, and then just never held them. So the only government representatives were von Hindenburg, basically, and Hitler. That's pretty much it. And von Hindenburg just kind of disappeared into the background while Hitler wrote executive order after executive order and controlled everything. That's how he came to power in the first place. That was in early 1933 when the Enabling Act was officially passed. The Reichstag building, the Congress building, the Capitol, basically, burned down in early 1933. The new elections were ordered to be held, and then nothing ever happened. The Reichstag stayed gone, Capitol building stayed gone, and the congressmen just never held new elections. So 1933 is where we're starting out with Hirschfeld's Sexology Institute, okay? On the morning of May 6, 1933, a group of vans pulled up outside Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld's Institute for Sexual Science in the Smart Tiergarten district of Berlin. Out of them leapt students from the Berlin School for Physical Education, members of the National Socialist German Students' League. By the way, socialist at that time meant something completely different than what it means today. Socialist was totally unconnected from communist. Hitler fearmongered about communism just as much as Trump fearmongers about it today. Socialism at the time in Germany meant you were in favor of unemployment insurance, Social Security, the equivalent of Social Security or food stamps or whatever. Basically, you're in favor of social programs that make people's lives easier for the working man. And the national part of National Socialists means you're a nationalist. You want to force everybody to follow your lead. You want to force everybody to be a socialist at the butt of a gun if need be. Nationalism is always, always, always bad. Israel is filled with Jewish nationalists. They want the entire country of Israel to be unified under Jewish control and only Jewish control. White nationalists in the United States want only white people to control the government and preferably to separate from the black community entirely. Christian nationalists want to have only Christians in the government. In fact, have only Christians in the country at all. That's what a nationalist is. So we have National Socialists in Germany at the time. That's what Nazi stands for, is an abbreviation for National Socialist, in case you didn't know. So members of the National Socialist German Students' League jump out of a van. They drew up in military formation. Then, while some of them took out their trumpets and tubas and started to play patriotic music, the others marched into the building. Their intentions were clearly unfriendly. Hirschfeld's Institute was well known in Berlin, not only for its championing of causes such as the legalization of homosexuality and abortion, and for its popular evening classes in sexual education, but also for its comprehensive collection of books and manuscripts on sexual topics, built up by the director since before the turn of the century. By 1933, which is when the Enabling Act was passed, of course, it housed between 12,000 and 20,000 books, estimates vary, and an even larger collection of photographs on sexual subjects. The Nazi students who stormed into the Institute on May 6, 1933, proceeded to pour red ink over books and manuscripts, played football with framed photographs, leaving the floor covered in shards of broken glass, and ransacked the cupboards and drawers, throwing their contents onto the floor. 4 days later, more vans arrived, this time with stormtroopers. Yes, that's really what German soldiers were called, stormtroopers. Is Star Wars starting to make more sense? This time with stormtroopers carrying baskets, into which they piled as many books and manuscripts as they could, and took them out onto the Opera Square. Here, they stacked them up in a gigantic heap and set light to them. About 10,000 books are said to have been consumed in the conflagration. As the fire burned on into the evening, the students carried a bust of the Institute's director into the square and threw it into the flames. Told that the 65-year-old Hirschfeld was abroad, recovering from an illness, the stormtrooper said, "Then hopefully he'll snuff it without us. Then we won't need to string him up or beat him to death." To string him up. That is literally exactly what Stu Peters said he wants to do to certain people, right? Extreme accountability. He wants to hold book burnings. Could it possibly be any clearer? Stu Peters is a Nazi. As a matter of fact, it could be clearer, and it's about to be. He talked about Magnus Hirschfeld, as I said previously, but this is a new one where he talked about it again. Listen to this. This one is from early June 2024.
I spoke on this program about the destruction of Berlin's Institute of Sexology, where subversive Jewish pervert Magnus
that's Magnus Hirschfeld right there.
Hirschfeld pioneered the modern LGBT movement. He pioneered it then. He even performed primitive, disgusting transgender mutilation surgeries on gay men.
Yeah, this guy is just completely twisting everything out of proportion. I'm sure I don't even need to say that, but I'm going to anyway. This is a complete bastardization of what actually happened. He's not even representing it correctly. And in a lot of cases, just not even telling the truth, just making things up.
It was at the Hirschfeld Institute of Sexology that perverts and subversives laid plans to spread their disgusting virus all over the world, taking a specific interest, of course, in Christian and European nations, as well as the United States, also a Christian nation.
So he's formulating a conspiracy that Hirschfeld, I don't know why he keeps saying Hirschfeld. Anyway, he's formulated a conspiracy that Hirschfeld, who was Jewish, plotted with other Jews and gay people to spread this virus of gayness and transness to the rest of the world. That is so psychotic, I don't even know what to do with it. It's so detached from reality. Like, it doesn't even represent reality to any degree.
Founded under God, which we will return it to. I think a lot of people think I'm bull about this extreme accountability stuff.
Again, when he says that, he means hang people. He means do exactly what the Nazis did, what we just read about in this World War II book.
They're scared to death because I'm not. I'm dead serious. You want to call us extremists? Let me show you extreme.
Oh, so he's just embracing it then. He's proud of being an extremist.
But like I said, the freaks then were defeated. In fact, Berlin's Institute of Sexology was the site of the largest and most famous book burnings in history.
It's true.
It was raided by German students shortly after Adolf Hitler came to power, and the works of Hirschfeld, along with the piles of, including child, went up in flames.
Yeah, that's just completely nonsensical garbage, what he's saying here. He's conflating gay people with people who take advantage of children. That's not an accurate representation of reality. Gay people are no more likely to take advantage of kids than straight people. But he wants to tie them together. He wants to make you hate gay people by making you think that another already hated group, people who take advantage of children, are the same group. I mean, this is an old tactic, claiming that gay people take advantage of kids. This is an old tactic that's existed since, honestly, since these videos were taken in World War II.
All of it was burnt. It was removed from the face of the planet, and then the fun spread to at least 34 other German cities in a matter of days, with the works of Hirschfeld and his colleagues being ripped from the shelves all over the country and set to fire.
Yeah, it set back trans rights and gay rights and progress decades. We're still trying to recover from all of that. Honestly, disgusting and horrific and wrong.
Turned to ash. What an heroic act that was.
Huh, you catch that? Heroic act. Interesting. If I remember correctly, let's see, we're at 334. What was it he said that Newsweek and Raw Story and all them quoted him as saying it was completely wrong? What was that?
Raw Story called me a pro-Hitler Nazi. I don't know how these people get I mean, they said that I was a Holocaust denier, which is completely false, emphatically false. As a matter of fact, they made up a quote out of whole cloth and said, Stu Peters said, quote, Hitler is a hero.
Okay.
Bro, I have never said any such thing. And they...
All right, so he says he's never said any such thing. Nothing apparently even resembling Hitler was a hero, right? But just like literally like a week after he said that on Fresh and Fit, he's talking about Nazi book burnings as heroic acts. Okay, sure, I suppose in this one, he didn't explicitly say, quote, Hitler was a hero. But he said Nazis were doing heroic things. They were doing heroic acts. Any judge would see right through this. He doesn't bring a defamation case against Raw Story or whoever else because he'd lose. It would be a waste of his time and money, and he knows that. He's praising Nazis, the Nazi movement. Does it get clearer? And this isn't even what they were talking about. This one's new.
Heroic act that was. People wonder about why millions upon millions of people supported the rise of the National Socialists.
Supported the rise of Nazis. Remember, that's what that means.
Rise of the National Socialists. These people were backed into a corner.
No, they weren't. They were propagandized to That was the problem. They were lied to and convinced that this minority group, honestly, a number of minority groups, were out to get them. Were trying to get them killed by sending them to war, the Jews. Believed that the Jews were in power at the top of government and they ordered people to go to war and die. They believed that gay people and trans people were trying to get your kids, trying to convert them to be gay or whatever. That's how they got them whipped into a blood frenzy. They weren't backed into a corner. After World War I ended, 1918, 1919 vicinity, that's when like the Nazi movement really started to kind of gain ground. It was the most intense example of hyperinflation ever in recorded history. The gold mark, their currency of the time, was 200 gold marks per US dollar is what it was worth. And then it went up to 2,000 per US dollar, a tenfold increase. And then 2 million, and then 2 billion. 2 billion gold marks per $1, and then $1 trillion per US$. Most intense case of hyperinflation ever recorded. People were selling themselves for sticks of butter. People were trying to grow plants in their windowsills because that's the only food that they could access. That kind of thing. It was bad, right? That was all the direct result of Wilhelm II, the emperor, the Kaiser, sending people out to fight in World War I, and trying to take France and failing. He was forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, which ordered reparations be paid to the rest of the world for the damage that Germany did in World War I, and their currency became completely worthless after all of that happened. So Hitler comes in and he rides the National Socialist movement to the top and says, the Jews in power right now are to blame. He claimed that they're immigrants. He's blaming immigrants for the problem. Says the immigrants who are Jewish were the ones that sent us to war, to die, and to get gassed by the British in the trenches. When if we had just gassed 6,000 people at the top, these Jews, then our millions of men wouldn't have to have suffered that. That's how he justified move from one position to the next to the next. That's a logical steps that Hitler took to arrive at we should gas the Jews, basically. That is how Nazis rose to power. They propagandized and lied and fear-mongered and twisted everything completely out of proportion. By the late 1920s, things were actually pretty good for Germany. Their currency, they got rid of the gold mark, and they created a new currency that was linked to the price of gold. It was on the gold standard. But Germany was completely destitute. They had nearly nothing. So they renegotiated the Treaty of Versailles to push their reparations payments back 5 years. So they just didn't have it to give to the rest of the world. So they renegotiated that, and things started to pick up a little bit. They started getting better. And after all of that suffering that the German people did after World War I, they were pissed off. They believed that the Germans were the superior race in all of Europe, in fact, all of the world, and that they were being mistreated terribly by the Jews of the countries around them who were controlling everything. And that is how they got whipped into a blood frenzy, like that. One logical step after another. It wasn't because gay people were trying to turn their kids gay, like Stu Peters is saying here. And it's wild to me that this guy is justifying hating gay people by identifying with the Nazis and saying the Nazis were ultimately innocent. That's what he's doing, right? I can say that comfortably, knowing that this guy is litigious and willing to come after people for defamation if they misrepresent him. I'm comfortable saying that he is excusing Nazi crimes by calling them heroic acts and saying that the Nazis were just trying to get rid of people who take advantage of children in society, which is synonymous with gay people in his mind.
These people were backed into a corner.
They were not. They were just hateful and violent and believed they were the best. That's all.
They were pushed to a breaking point, and they broke. When it came to standing for something, they chose to stand for their children.
Against the Jews?
Are there any real men left among us that will stand for our children?
So what he's saying with that line, it's kind of subtle there, not really, but he's saying you need to stand up and get your AR-15 and go down to wherever and pull the trigger now. He's trying to get people to take action now. Do it now. It's not like one day there's going to be a civil war, and when that civil war happens, no. He's saying do it now. We're starting. That's what Stu Peters is doing. If this isn't threat of imminent bodily harm, I don't know what is. This is illegal. Threat of imminent bodily harm is against the law. It is not protected under free speech. Like yelling fire in a crowded theater, for example. If you do something that leads directly to someone's harm or death, like hiring a hitman. You tell somebody, go kill that person, and then they go kill that person. That's illegal. You cannot do that. That's not protected under free speech. How is that any different than what Stu Peters is doing? Is he not calling for people to kill others? He is. How's he not in jail for this? Honestly, I am about as close to a free speech absolutist as it gets without actually crossing the line into you should be allowed to say literally anything no matter what. But this is a line. This right here, this crosses it.
These people will flee like Hirschfeld did. He fled the country. He went to France. He died a few years later, never returning to his former place of prominence among the perverts of the world who suddenly became stateless after thriving in the Judeo Republic of Weimar, Germany.
The Jewish Republic of Weimar, Germany. Yeah, that was the name of the government, the Weimar Republic, and it was a democracy like the United States. Stu Peters also said that he does not like democracy. It's dangerous, and we shouldn't have it. He said that in the Fresh and Fit podcast, too. But that's, I don't need to cover that right now. He is reaffirming all of the claims made by Hitler, saying that the Nazis committed acts of heroism. I'm sorry, man. If this is not calling Hitler a hero in spirit, if not in exact quote, then I don't know what is. Is this not calling him a hero?
In short, the destruction of Hirschfeld's demonic work was part of a massive cleansing process. It was beautiful, and it must take place once again for the sake of our children and all that is decent.
He's trying to inspire another Nazi revolution.
And it will take place again. But on the other side of the ocean, Magnus Hirschfeld is rearing his disgusting head from beyond the grave. In Germany, which has been completely overhauled by communists and perverts and with a vendetta against the German people.
By the way, just a quick note here. You hear him talking about communists and perverts and so on. Literally words right out of Hitler's mouth. That is exactly what Hitler said to get people whipped into a blood frenzy. He called people Bolsheviks. He talked about cultural Bolshevism. The Bolshevik Party was what would eventually become the Communist Party in Russia when communism took over in Russia. So when you call somebody a Bolshevik, you're calling them a communist. Hitler convinced von Hindenburg, the president, to order new elections to be held. Originally, it's called dissolving the government. Order new elections to be held because there were communists all through the government and we need to root out the communists. That's what Hitler tried to convince von Hindenburg of. It was all about how evil communism is, start to finish. Stu Peters' ideas, beliefs, feelings, morality, everything, it all mirrors Hitler's exactly, precisely, practically. It's about as disturbing as it gets. And he's sitting here pretending that he was misrepresented. He's never said any such thing as Hitler was a hero or the Nazis committed acts of heroism. Never? Really? You've never said that?
People. May 14th of this year was declared Magnus Hirschfeld Day in Berlin, that country's capital city.
Yeah, that's because that was a minority group that was genocided by the Nazis. This is something that J.K. Rowling rejects too, by the way, called Holocaust denialism. If you're denying that the Holocaust played out the way that historians know that it played out, that we have records to prove that this is how it played out, you're a Holocaust denier.
And it was done at the behest of Berlin's so-called queer liaison officer. I'm serious, that actually exists. This queer liaison officer's entire job is making sure that Berlin serves as the rainbow capital of the world, a title that's also coveted by other cesspits like San Francisco and Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv, of course, in Israel. He doesn't like Jews either. I don't know if that's been made clear or not. He thinks that Jews are running the world, of course. It's absolutely insane. Is Tel Aviv the gay capital of the world? I've never heard that before. Maybe, I suppose.
And this sickening holiday, which we refuse to call it.
Well, you just called it that, didn't you?
It wasn't just a day on the calendar to appease the queers.
See, he's using that word as a slur. You know, the queer community has reclaimed the word queer. lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, either one, I guess. He's using it as a slur here. It's not just, he's not allowing people to reclaim it. What is wrong with this guy? How did he get like this? Did his parents, like, not love him enough? Did they hit him when he was little? Like, I don't know. What happened?
It wasn't just a day on the calendar to appease the queers. No, it included a wreath-laying ceremony at a memorial dedicated to Hirschfield. Museums around the entire city put up exhibits celebrating Hirschfield and his fellow perverts, and this queer liaison officer called on Berliners to, quote, celebrate this Magnus Hirschfield Day in such a way that we also see it as a protective shield of democracy. Now, what the hell does that even mean?
It means that this person was wronged terribly by an authoritarian dictator, and they want to recognize that fact so that this kind of thing never happens again. I thought that was made clear, but okay.
If Magnus Hirschfield is democracy, then the entire West needs a new system of government.
I mean, he's calling to end democracy here, right? Again, he did this same exact thing in the Fresh and Fit interview. He called for an end to democracy. Oh, and by the way, his B-roll here on the side, he intentionally put like really, really graphic stuff in. Not like illegal things, just really graphic stuff that didn't even need to be in there. I don't know why he did that, so I blurred it.
Now, what's kind of amusing about all of this is that for decades, good old-fashioned German book burnings have been portrayed as some kind of an anti-academic purge in which science and math and history books were rounded up and destroyed.
Yes, exactly. That's correct.
That's fake.
No, that's what he's describing. That's what he wants to do.
See, that's a lie. Adolf Hitler and the rise of the National Socialists may be the most lied about people in world history.
If this is not Holocaust denialism, Holocaust revisionism, and effectively calling Hitler a hero, I don't know what is, honestly. He's coming after people who claim that about him. Like, this would not stand in a court of law for a single second. All I'd have to do is play this video of him, this whole thing, this like 8-minute video, and they'd throw the case out 15 seconds after the video ended.
Maybe the most lied about people in world history. Maybe. But now that LGBTism is on the offensive and staunchly supported by the modern-day Weimar perverts that we have running our governments, queers and trans and are being lionized as the ultimate victims of the Nazis.
Not the ultimate victims, but they were victims.
So it was a Holocaust against...
No. It was a Holocaust against anybody who didn't fit exactly within this very specific subset of people. White, German, Aryan, blonde hair, blue-eyed preferably, people who wanted to reproduce and birth their way into a master race. Everybody else was either a second-class citizen or killed. Straight up killed. You were gay? You're killed. You disagree with Hitler? You're a political prisoner in a death camp. You're killed. Jehovah's Witness, killed. Jews, killed. If you did not match up to what they wanted, you were killed.
Because we're not going to deny the Holocaust.
That's literally what he spent his entire time doing just now.
Bad things happen. Atrocities happened. Horrific things happened. Yeah, it was a war. It was a world war. But that world war, the purpose or the cause of that war was not the Holocaust in which 6 million Jews were killed. It's just not true.
It is. As a matter of fact, it's true. Yes, it is. You know how we know that? Because Nazis kept meticulous records. We can go through all of their paperwork and see all the names of everybody who they killed and all kinds of stuff. They were nothing if not organized and good at bureaucracy. We know how many people died. And, as a matter of fact, there are people alive today who were in Auschwitz, this death camp. We can ask them. People still have tattoos on their arms. Not many left nowadays because, this is like 100 years ago now. But they're out there. In fact, there are still Nazi guards out there who've been tried, like even recently, for war crimes. Absolutely insane to me that this guy has the twig and berries to come out here and say what he's saying right now.
And that isn't anti-Semitic. And that's not because I hate Jews like the Rolling Stone likes to say.
He does, but that's not why.
Or how NBC News labeled me a dangerous individual and Facebook kicked me off of their platform forever.
The gall.
That's just the truth.
No, none of it is the truth. I mean, you're seeing why he was kicked off of every platform and labeled a dangerous individual and all that, right? This is just him endorsing Nazi ideology. I haven't even played... Well, I played a couple of parts where he endorsed taking people out violently, firing squad or whatever. I played a little bit of that, but that's like all he talks about between his Nazi rants.
Okay. Pervert TikTokers flocked to Berlin to celebrate Magnus Hirschfeld Day. They posted videos whining about thousands of books stuffed full of transgender being burnt.
I mean, there were books of all sorts there that talked about sexual subjects, and it was the first institute of its kind, and the biggest of its kind, at the very least. And it's a loss to the world that we lost all of that information. It wasn't about dirty pictures. It was about losing information, research, studies, and all kinds of other things. 20 or 30,000 books, documents, and studies and things on these subjects, as The Coming of the Third Reich said by Richard J. Evans.
I'm not kidding. Watch for yourself.
It's the first time that the German parliament is hosting an exhibition about the LGBTQ plus victims of the Nazis. Around 100,000 gay and bi men were arrested, and thousands of queer people were sent to concentration camps. Many of them didn't survive.
We don't want to look at these people like the regime does. We want to give them their own voice and to be seen, and so we have to point out the varieties of arrangement, surviving and suffering.
Many of these photos have not been made public before.
But in a time when anti-LGBTQ plus misinformation,
as well as Holocaust revisionism, has become more prevalent online, the curators of this exhibition think it's much more than a lesson about Germany's dark past.
This exhibition points out very clearly that we have even lesbian, trans, inter people suffering the system, although the legal framework did not find regulation for their behavior.
No one...
Well, that's actually interesting. I cannot, what could Stu Peters possibly say that's negative about this?
No one is even denying anymore. The Nazis were fighting perverts and...
No, they weren't. The Nazis were whipping people into a blood frenzy. What? He says no one is fighting that anymore? What? No, Nazis are still in a minority, a very, very small minority, but they're out there. And again, he has millions of listeners every month. It's hard to gauge exactly how many subscribers he would have or whatever, because Rumble doesn't really compare to YouTube, neither does Telegram or whatever else. But I would say he gets millions of views on his videos, if I had to guess. Millions of people agree with what he's saying. That's insane.
I'm absolutely not afraid to say that.
Yeah, we know.
Nazis were fighting against perverts and pedophiles. And some of those acts, including those Nazi book burnings, as they're called, were heroic acts.
There you go. Does it get clearer?
You see,
some of those Nazi acts were heroic acts. He just complained earlier about Newsweek or Rolling Stone or whoever else saying that he said that Hitler was heroic. Does it get clearer? He views Nazis as heroes.
You see, the National Socialists, they promised a return to normalcy.
I don't know what normalcy would be in this equation, and no, they didn't. That's not what that movement was about at all.
But the very same subversives who we find infiltrating the interior of our fake government, see, they set their sights on something that they want to pervert or destroy, and they...
Who's they? Are they in the room with us right now? He's talking about Jews or gay people. setting their sights on things that they want to destroy or subvert, and they focus in on it and destroy it. That's what he's saying right now. This is psychotic.
Want to pervert or destroy, and they never stop until they get their teeth into it.
Get help, Stu.
And now they're telling us that those freaks were the good guys.
Well, I mean, they are accurate. Well, who is they? Again, who is they in this scenario? History accurately shows us that the LGBT community were victims of Nazi brutality. I don't get how he can deny this. But this bit right here at the end, I want to address this. One more thing here.
Nazi book burnings, as they're called, were heroic acts. You see, the National Socialists, they promised a return to normalcy.
They didn't. I just want to point this thing out right here. I'll tell you what the Nazis did. They promised a return to the old empire. So there had been two Reichs, or two empires, before the Weimar Republic. Weimar Republic itself is not considered an empire. That was the government that ran everything from the end of Wilhelm II's reign, the end of World War I, 1919 or so, all the way to 1933 after the Enabling Act when Hitler took over. That was the democratic government that operated very much like the United States. The Second Reich ran from, I believe, 1870-something all the way to 1919, basically, at the end of World War I. And when Hitler was getting people whipped into a blood frenzy, he kept saying, I want to go back to a better time. Make Germany great again. Is that sounding familiar at all? Make Germany great again. He looked back to a nostalgic past that was terrible. People suffered terribly. They lost wars. They didn't have anything. Their economy crashed and burned. They didn't have anywhere near as many freedoms as they did under the Weimar Republic. That wasn't a good time. Every fascist extremist movement like Hitler's look back to a previous bygone era with nostalgic lenses, as though it was better back then. Make America great again. Does that sound familiar? It's actually stolen from Ronald Reagan's slogan, which was, let's make America great. When was America great exactly? Usually it's the 1950s. That's kind of when they're looking back to. The 1950s were not great. Segregation was still in full effect. I mean, my parents went to segregated schools. People were treated terribly if they didn't fit within this very narrow, specific window. Women weren't allowed to have credit cards or bank accounts or get loans or whatever. Black people were not allowed to vote, I don't think, until like the 60s or the 70s or something. People were mistreated terribly. What are you looking back to that was good? It's a fictitious, mythical past that these fascist regimes are looking back to. It's not the real past. Hitler said, we're going to revive the empire. We're going to create a third Reich, a third empire, just like the second one when things were great under Wilhelm II. In fact, I believe that Wilhelm II, he was the emperor, the Kaiser, right at the end there of the Second Reich, before the Weimar Republic came to be. And I believe it was Hitler, it was either Hitler or von Hindenburg, who basically got a hold of Wilhelm II, who had moved to the Netherlands to live out the rest of his life. They got a hold of him and got his endorsement. Not that it really meant anything or mattered, but that mythical past, looking back to a time when things were better, when they really weren't. That's what they were reaching for. That's what the United States is reaching for right now, or Donald Trump, at the very least. He's reaching for a mythical past. So Stu Peters is living in a fictitious world with this.
You see, the National Socialists, they promised a return to normalcy.
Well, I suppose that they promised a return to normalcy the same way that Donald Trump promised a return to normalcy, but there was no, like, breach of normalcy that went away exactly, unless you mean segregation. And Trump actually made things, like, significantly worse. He did not bring it back to what it used to be at all, and neither did Hitler. Anyway, the primary focus of Hitler, the main enemy that he named, that he really zeroed in on, was immigrants. And the immigrants that Germany dealt with, unlike America, where our immigrants are primarily like South Americans, Central Americans, Mexicans and things. Unlike Mexicans in the United States, as a large portion of our immigrants, Jews were immigrants in Germany. We are following a line right now. We're following like a trend that already played out 100 years ago. I mean, Hitler even did his own January 6th that was called the Beer Hall Putsch. All of this is already played out. And Stu Peters seems to know that and is trying to push it down that direction even further. I'm glad he got canceled from Atlantic City Caesar Hotel or whatever. I'm glad they kicked him out. I'm glad Eventbrite yanked him from their platform. If he wants to create a gathering of Nazis who are going to burn books, then I suppose that's technically his right, whatever. But he's going to have to do it on his own, without the support of society, broader society. And I'm glad for that. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. This dude needs help. They all need help. Jehovah's Witnesses have a unique view on the LGBT community. Let's talk about how they come to their conclusions about the demographic and why they're wrong. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. This is Jehovah's Witnesses' website. What does the Bible say about homosexuality? It's the title of this article. I happen to know exactly what Jehovah's Witnesses think the Bible says about it, and I'll clarify with what it actually says about it. But let's read their article, see what they say. Before we read the article on Jehovah's Witnesses' website, let me just read a couple of excerpts from my book. This is 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, and I have another book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, where I draw out resources about what they believe regarding the LGBT community. So let me just read a couple so you have an idea of what their position is. This is question number 18 out of my 100 questions for Jehovah's Witnesses. Why do Jehovah's Witnesses think that being gay is wrong? The Bible mentions homosexuality in any form in a total of 6 out of 31,102 verses. It seems clear to me that it wasn't an important issue. 3 of those verses are in the Old Testament, Genesis 19, the story of God, Sodom and Gomorrah, and Leviticus 18 and 20. Those are the 3 verses from the Old Testament. Some of the verses are based on Sodom and Gomorrah, so it's important to note that these cities weren't destroyed because gay people lived within their walls. Ezekiel 16:49. Now this is the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. So the 3 verses in the Old Testament are nullified in my mind, right? Because they're irrelevant. Jesus came back and fulfilled the old law. We don't need it. So Leviticus 18 and 20 are out the door. Sodom and Gomorrah is out the door. It's irrelevant. That leaves us with 3 other verses. 1 Corinthians 6:9-10, 1 Timothy 1:10, and then Romans 1:26-27. The Romans verse is the most commonly trotted out by creationists. It says, "For this reason God gave them up to degrading passions. Their women exchanged natural intercourse for unnatural, and in the same way also the men, giving up natural intercourse with women, were consumed with passion for one another. Men committed shameless acts with men and received in their own persons a due penalty for their error." Well, once you dig a little bit deeper, I don't speak the language, okay? This isn't for me. I didn't come up with this. This is somebody else. This is scholars in the field. When you dig a little bit deeper, scholars discovered that the conditions, the cultural situation at the time were completely different for gay people. It didn't exist in its current form as we have today. When it's talking about men committing shameless acts with men and so on and so forth, it's actually talking about 2 things. Being the passive participant in a male prostitution equation, specifically, being the bottom, basically, is what I'm saying, or pederasty. Pederasty is where older men take young boys as pupils and do terrible things to them. So that's what was being condemned by the Bible here. Jesus didn't say a word about anything gay, as a matter of fact. And neither did anybody else, except for these few verses here. So I'm having a hard time accepting that Jehovah's Witnesses are using a biblical position to hate gay people. Now, let's just read a little bit of this article here. What does the Bible say about homosexuality? The Bible's answer. Look, check it out. They quoted Genesis 1:27, Sodom and Gomorrah. Even though it wasn't destroyed, because of gay people. It was destroyed because of their treatment of the poor. God created humans to engage in sex only with the arrangement of marriage between a male and a female. Genesis 1:27 and 28, Leviticus 18:22. What did I tell you? They're quoting the Old Testament again, the Mosaic Law, the thing that Jesus fulfilled. The Bible condemns sexual activity that is not between a husband and a wife, whether it's homosexual or heterosexual conduct. I'm not sure what this Proverbs verse says. I don't trust their Bible as far as I can throw it. Actually, I can throw it pretty far, so I can't trust it at all is the point. Let me just see if I can pull up the original. Don't ask me how I know how hard I can throw their Bible. All right, Proverbs 5:18 to 19. Let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in the wife of your youth, a lovely deer, a graceful doe. Deer, D-E-E-R, like the animal. A lovely animal, deer. May her breast satisfy you at all times. May you be intoxicated always by her love. Okay. What does that have to do with anything? Why are we even reading this? Why'd they stick this in there? Is there like a broader context that I'm missing here? Oh, this is a warning against impurity and infidelity? Drink water from your own cistern, flowing water from your own well. Should your springs be scattered abroad, streams of water in the streets, let them be for yourself alone and not sharing with strangers. Okay. Well, that doesn't sound like a very good message that anybody should stand for. And this, my friends, is called cherry picking. The Bible condemns sexual activity that is not between a husband and a wife, whether it's homosexual or heterosexual. This includes intercourse. Oh my God. Are they really going to go through the list? They are. Fondling and engaging in other forms of, acts. I'm trying to keep it monetizer friendly. While the Bible disapproves of gay acts, it does not condone hatred of homosexuals or homophobia. Instead, Christians are directed to respect everyone. Okay, good. I love that message, except they're completely full of it. Let me prove it. This is my book, once again. Jehovah's Witnesses in 2023, not even that long ago, 2023, one of their watchtowers, they released an article about them being persecuted by gay people. Okay, I'm not even joking with this. The article is from their August 2023 watchtower, page 6. Here's the quote from it. Some even try to bully our young ones into breaking their loyalty to Jehovah. Note, for example, what happened to a young man named Graham, who lives in Australia. He faced a challenging situation when he attended high school. The teacher asked the class how they would react if a friend confided in them about being a homosexual. Gotta say that. The teacher said all in the class who would support a friend in pursuing such a lifestyle must stand on one side of the room. Those who would not on the other side. This is an absurd situation, okay? I'm sorry. I can't buy that this happened in a public school in Australia. Why didn't this make international news? You know, Trump nutcases would jump at the opportunity to talk about this. People being persecuted for hating the gay lifestyle choice. Just absurd. Just everything about it. Every word out of my mouth was absurd just now. Anyway, when he's supposedly put on each side of the room, Graham says the entire class stood on the side that supported that lifestyle, except for me and another witness. What happened next was a real test of Graham's loyalty to Jehovah. For the rest of the hour-long class, he says, the other students and even the teacher taunted and insulted us. Really, the teacher separated her class into kids that support the gay lifestyle choice and those who don't, and then taunted and made fun of the ones that didn't support it. Really? Come on. Am I supposed to believe this? Anyway, it says, I did my best to defend my faith in a calm and reasonable way, but they didn't listen to a word I said. What effect did this loyalty have on Graham? He says, I did not like being the target of such verbal attacks, but I felt incredibly happy that I was able to defend my beliefs without compromise. Jehovah's Witnesses, Watchtower, August 2023, page 6. That's absurd. I argue in this book that Jehovah's Witnesses hate gay people. I don't want them to get away with this. We love everybody. You know, like they said a minute ago on their article. What was it they said? The Bible does not condone hatred of homosexuals or homophobia. Instead, Christians are directed to respect everyone. I disagree on the idea that Jehovah's Witnesses believe that everyone should be loved and respected. This is question number 97 in my book. Why do Jehovah's Witnesses hate gay people? Jehovah's Witnesses would deny this charge. We don't hate gay people, they say. We love everybody. We just want them to meet God's moral expectations. Sound familiar? Just like they put in this article here? We've already spoken about God's moral expectations, but I claim Jehovah's Witnesses do hate gay people. Look at this quote from a 1995 Awake article. A youth who desires to please God, therefore, conform to his moral standards and shun immoral behavior, though doing so may be agonizingly difficult. True, some individuals may very well be prone to homosexuality. Well, this is progress from where they stood previously. In their 1976 book called Your Youth Getting the Best Out of It, they wrote that touching yourself will turn you gay, for one thing. A whole bunch of other stuff will turn you gay. I don't remember. The quotes are all in my book, by the way, owenmorgan.com if you want to read more of it. So they've moved off of that onto people are prone to it, apparently. I thought it was a lifestyle choice. What happened to that a second ago? Some individuals may very well be prone to homosexuality, just as some individuals are, according to the Bible, prone to wrath. But the Bible still condemns displays of unrighteous anger. Similarly, unrighteous is highlighted here, unrighteous anger. Similarly, a Christian cannot excuse immoral behavior by saying he was born that way. Child molesters invoke the same pathetic excuse when they say their craving for children is innate, but one cannot deny that their sexual appetite is perverted. So is the desire for someone of the same sex. Jehovah's Witnesses, Why Do I Have These Feelings? Awake, February 8th, 1995, page 16. So I simply disagree. When you have that viewpoint about gay people, you can't care about them. How'd they put it? You can't respect them. There is no respect being paid here. You don't love your neighbor as yourself. You hate them. I don't know how else to put it. Can a person be born homosexual? Okay, this one's bound to be interesting. The Bible doesn't comment directly on the biology of homosexual desires. No really? I thought that it talked all about genes and genomes and gametes and all that other shit. Okay, this is news to me. I didn't know the Bible is completely ignorant to any scientific information. All right, go on. Though it acknowledges that we are all born with a tendency to go against what God commands. Does that include heterosexual people, I wonder? Rather than focus on the cause of homosexual desires, however, the Bible prohibits homosexual acts. Well, like I said, it mentions it in 6 verses. Jesus never said it. Why don't you ever consider the possibility that maybe God condemned heterosexual acts? Why is it gay acts? And you know what? That only makes up 7% of the population. The path is narrow, right? And the few that are going to make it are going to be small in number or whatever. What happened to all that? Maybe being gay is preferable to God. No, it's not preferable. The Bible speaks negatively about it in some cases, but none in cases that Christians should pay any attention to, really. Or none that are legitimized by the history of the Bible, the actual history behind it. How to please God despite having same-sex urges. All right, this section is on how to pleasure God like a young boy should. Okay, the Bible says, don't be controlled by your body. Kill every desire for the wrong kind of sex. To kill wrong desires which lead to wrong actions, you need to control your thinking. Thought control. This is literally one of the factors that make something a cult. Creating a new personality through behavior and thought control and information control and emotional control. I mean, could they be any more on the nose about this? If you regularly fill your mind with wholesome thoughts, you can more readily dismiss wrong desires. While you may struggle greatly at first, it can become easier. God promises to help you to be made new in the force actuating your mind. Okay. The same struggles faced by millions with heterosexual desires who wish to conform to the Bible's standards, i.e., no sex before marriage. For example, those who are single with little prospect of marriage or who are married to a partner who's unable to function sexually choose to control their sexual urges despite any temptations they might face. They're able to live happily, and those with same-sex urges can do so as well if they truly want to please God. This is an extremely unique situation that they're outlining here. Somebody who is with someone who's disabled, basically, and in those types of situations, there's other stuff that can be done. It doesn't mean it's the end of your sex life. It doesn't even mean going with someone else either. All kinds of other options here. In gay people's case, it means none. It means period. For the rest of your life, that's it. When in reality, the Bible does not condemn long-term gay relationships like gay marriage. It doesn't condemn gay marriage. I guess that's how Jehovah's Witnesses view the whole situation. Big surprise. Absolutely terrible. And kind of underhanded. They're trying to obscure their real feelings on it by saying they're supposed to respect everyone. No one is supposed to hate gay people. They just hate what they do. Just come out and say it. They put it in their magazines. They instill this feeling in their people strongly enough. I know how they feel. Everybody knows how they feel. Why are they pretending otherwise? This probably pisses me off more than people who overtly engage in homophobia. Them pretending that they're not engaging in homophobia, but doing so. That's really frustrating to me. Anyway, tell me what you think in the comments. That's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, don't forget to check me out on Patreon. And take a look at my YouTube channels. Owen Morgan, where I talk about religious issues. Telltale Fireside Chat, where I talk about politics. Telltale Unfiltered, where I do long-form breakdowns of stuff like this. And take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.